Day and welcome everyone. We will begin our session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. So you still have about 9 or 10 minutes to go ahead and breathe, stretch, exhale, get coffee, etc. So again, 2 minutes after the top of the hour, we will begin this session. Welcome. For those of you that just joined, welcome. We're glad to have you. We will start our session 2 minutes after the top of the hour. So you still have time to get coffee or refreshments. So again, 2 minutes after the top of the hour, we'll start our session. Welcome. Good day and welcome everyone. We'll get started in another minute and a half. So we'll allow others to join us and we'll get started shortly. Okay, welcome everyone. We're glad to have you here. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Odell Gordon. I am a technical trainer here at Sumo Logic. My background, I've been in IT for about 30 years now. I've played several roles in IT, DevOps, DBA, and technical trainer. I enjoy training. My passion is teaching, so hopefully you'll see that or realize that in our course. I'm dialing in from the Midwest. It is a scorching hot 90 degrees. Hopefully you're somewhere where you're comfortable as well. I have been fortunate enough to be joined by my esteemed colleague, John Meredith. John, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey folks, good morning from the New England area. Again, my name is John Meredith and I'll be assisting Odell. I'll be monitoring the chat box in case you have any questions, things along those lines. Otherwise, I see Odell and I are in the same uniform of the day there. And otherwise, look forward to working with you. Have a great class, folks.
Thank you, sir. Again, as John mentioned, please, if you have any questions, please put them in chat or QA, and we'll, of course, get to those right away as quickly as possible. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Some of you have been with me all week long where we had the fundamentals. Yesterday we had search mastery, and finally we get to our administration course. Our agenda for the administration course is eventually we're going to download a file. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is going to create collectors. Again, you guys are going to be allowed to log into our training environment. So all this is done in our training environment. So we'll download a file that's going to be needed. We'll then go ahead and we'll do some hands-on demos where we set up a collector with 2 sources. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and talk about some optimization tools. I'll give you an overview of the administration setup, and then we'll get into hands-on labs for number 4 and 6. Now you'll notice we skip 5. 5 allows you to go back and take the fundamentals course and do those labs. We won't do that, but again, be aware that's why 5 is missing. And then at the end of the lecture, we'll go ahead and give you the opportunity to get certified. You'll have 60 minutes for the examination. Again, we're glad to have you. And we want to show our appreciation by giving you a $15 Uber Eats voucher once you take the exam and pass it. Okay, I'll put this link in the chat once we get towards the exam and you pass it. You can fill out that link and get your $15 Uber Eats voucher. All right, so let's talk about from a high level perspective, our data flow. You may have seen this slide in prior courses that we have. Again, it's the same slide. It's a logical data flow. And it's important to us because we're going to spend our time on the part 1 in this data flow. I often ask students to lend me their imagination. I want you to imagine that we have a highway, okay? And on one end of that highway, you have Sumo Logic cloud-based environment. And on the other end of that highway, we have your logs and your metrics. Somehow we have to get your logs and metrics into our Sumo Logic environment. And that somehow is a vehicle. The vehicle is called a collector. Okay, that collector allows us to define sources. And in this class, that's what we're going to spend our time on, creating collectors. Okay. Your collectors are going to compress, encrypt, and send your logs and your messages, metrics up to our Sumo Logic environment. Once we get your logs and metrics in our environment, then we can go ahead and search and analyze those logs and metrics using operators. Now, if you missed our search mastery course, I would suggest you again take that search mastery because it deals with a lot of operators that we have available. We'll give you tons of examples of utilizing operators. But again, we're on the logical data flow, and we're on step 2 here, process number 2. So we're searching, we're analyzing, we're using operators, we're displaying our results in charts, any different types of visualizations, so charts. That will then lead us to a visualization where we can begin to monitor. We also have the ability to set up alerts and dashboards. Okay, so that's the logical data flow. Get your data in, find out what's going on, display it, share it, monitor it, set up alerts. Right now, let me save some bandwidth here. I'm going to turn off my video so you can focus on the lecture and the slides. Now we talk about step 1 in that logical flow that we just mentioned. Again, we want to get your logs and metrics into our environment. How do we do that? That vehicle I talked about, the collector. There's two types of collectors. And if you've taken any of our trainings up until this point, you're aware of that. There's installed collectors and hosted collectors, okay? Then you define or choose your sources, okay? Once we, again, have your logs and metrics in our environment, then that will allow us to go ahead and build some queries. We can build some log search queries, some metric queries, or do some live tails. Okay. Again, if you haven't taken any class, a live tail is essentially, and you'll see that your data being ingested in Sumo Logic. It's actually giving you, you can create a query to allow you to see that ingestion. And when we talk about visualization and monitoring, one of the things that we mention in our courses is that we give you a starting point. So let's say you're new to the tool and you don't really know where to start. Well, we have some apps in our tool. We have a library of available apps. You can go to the app catalog, scroll through that library, you can search through it. And one of the key apps that we suggest you install, we're going to talk about coming up, okay? You can view your data with those predefined searches and dashboards that those apps provide, okay? So essentially, we are suggesting that, again, you download one or two of those apps and start to utilize the predefined searches and dashboards that those apps provide. What that does for you, it saves you from having to build searches right off, okay? Not saying that you cannot, but again, it's a good starting place for you. Now, when we talk about that data collection, again, that's what we're going to be focusing on. You may have seen this slide before as well. It looks sort of overwhelming when you first see it, but we're going to divide it into halves. We have on one half our installed collectors, and on the other half, we have our hosted collectors. And remember, I tried to lean on your imagination, and I talked about that highway. So here's our Sumo Logic environment, and here's your data. We got to figure out your logs and your metrics. We got to figure out how to get it up into this Sumo Logic environment. And I mentioned a vehicle, and there's two types of vehicles. There's installed and hosted. So let's look at the left side here. You'll see here that we have an on-prem environment where we have servers on hand. We installed a distributed where we installed a Sumo install collector on each server, okay? So this is more of a distributed approach, on-prem servers, okay? What we're doing here is we're compressing, encrypting, and sending up through the firewall to the Sumo Logic environment. So that's a distributed approach. An install collector is what we're talking about right now. Another approach is maybe you want a single server where you have a standalone installation. So we install our actual install collector on one server, and all of the other servers sends their logs and metrics. The Sumo Logic installation here will allow us to encrypt, compress, send up through the firewall, and get it to Sumo Logic's cloud-based environment. Again, what we're discussing is install collectors that's typically used for on-prem environments. On the other hand, is the hosted collectors. If your logs and metrics are already in AWS, already up in Azure or in Google Cloud, then there's no installation. All we need to know is the credentials, where the logs are, the metrics are, and any type of security to access them. So there's no installation. So if your logs and metrics are in the cloud, you're going to use the hosted collector approach. If it's on-prem, you're going to use the install collector approach. Further breaking down those two possibilities, an install collector, again, you're installing it on one of your machines or multiple machines, either remotely or locally. Okay, that collector is going to collect the data available in your deployment. It also allows you to easily troubleshoot because they're collector logs that you can identify and search through as well. On the other hand, there's the hosted approach. Again, it's hosted by Sumo Logic. There's no installation for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that agentless means. All right. The hosted sources collect those seamlessly logs from AWS, Google, or Microsoft products. Okay. You can also receive those logs and metrics via URL as well. All right, now, so how many collectors do you need? Okay. An install collector on a dedicated machine. Remember, I gave you two approaches of those install collectors. One was the distributed, and then one was that single server. That's that dedicated approach. You would install it on a dedicated server if you want to run a very high bandwidth network with high logging levels, or if you require a central collection point for many sources. So again, that first approach is what I alluded to earlier. And then you would install more than one collector. And the key thing I want to point out here is if you expect your combined logging traffic for one collector to be greater than 15,000 events, or if you expect your collector to ingest greater than 500 separate files, okay? Or if you have a high memory or CPU limitation, okay? Or if it's geographically separated across network clusters or regions. Those are instances where you want to actually install multiple collectors. Again, we're discussing and defining and letting you know about the different types of collectors. And what you see on the left side is the hosted collectors, and on the right side is the install collectors. This is sort of like that overwhelming slide that we talked about before. We're using a highway, we're using a collector to get your logs and metrics into the Sumo Logic environment. On the left side, the hosted collectors, it allows for seamless collections from your, maybe your S3 buckets or your other sources, hosted sources. They don't require any installation or activation. The hosted collectors have no physical, they have physical requirements because there are no performance issues considered, okay? So you can configure as many as your S3 buckets, your HTTP sources as you like for a single hosted collector, okay? Unlike the install collectors, where we have to physically install something. What you're seeing is two different approaches. I've actually talked about these two approaches throughout the slides, the prior slides. Here we see we have a centralized collector, okay? That collector, again, is going to encrypt, compress, and send your logs and metrics. Then you see a more decentralized where you have a distributed approach where you're installing a collector on each server. These are typically, again, the approaches you would use for your on-prem environments. Your Sumo Logic install collectors are lightweight and efficient, okay? Here, we're further talking about a hosted collector. Most of your data is generated in the cloud and by the cloud services. It's collected via the Sumo Logic cloud integration. So again, we talk about the hosted collectors, there's no installation, okay? So let's say that you wanted to grab your S3 buckets, as I mentioned earlier, or you want to grab your Google APIs, your cloud syslogs. Again, It's hosted by Sumo Logic, so there's no installation, there's no software. It can be configured with any number of sources, and you're going to see that when we install. As I mentioned before, it's agentless. Some of the scenarios that you would want to utilize a hosted collector for is if you have a cloud infrastructure. It's possible to rely on the cloud data collection entirely, but it's not typical. Okay. The local data collection approach here is where I'm capturing, as I mentioned, I was a DBA. So this is one of the things that I would want to do. I would want to capture some of my logs. Maybe I want to capture some of my sys logs, maybe the operating system. Okay. Okay. There's no hardware that we have to be concerned about. It gives you direct access to your logs. These are the benefits and drawbacks of a local collector. It's easy to troubleshoot because, again, there's logs, login information going on in the background. It does require outbound internet access. It does require software installation, okay? Some scenarios where you would do local installation for our collectors is they have a large number of target hosts, or you do not have resources to maintain or build a centralized collection, or you want to automate your deployments, okay? And another scenario, if you're comfortable with target hosts being connected to the internet, or you have the majority of your target hosts in the cloud. So that was that distributed approach. And then lastly, that centralized approach. Again, you're capturing your source types or your middleware, operating system applications, your remote Windows events, database content, things of that sort, okay? What are some of the benefits of a centralized collector installation? Well, again, there's no outbound internet access. It leverages login infrastructure. Scaling and dedicated hardware and complexity are some of the drawbacks. Some of the scenarios that you would use a centralized approach, maybe you have too many target hosts, dozens, not thousands. Maybe the existing log aggregation and storing infrastructure in place can be leveraged. And limitations or concerns in terms of connectivity to the internet. So those are some scenarios that you could utilize a centralized collection installation. Now, as I mentioned, we want your items, and again, we collect logs, but this slide is to indicate and to remind you that we also collect metrics, okay? So your carbon 2.0s, your graphites, Prometheus, okay? Your AWS tags, your your CloudWatch metrics. Again, this slide is really to indicate to you that we collect metrics as well. Now let's talk about that metric ingestion, okay? The ingestion, each account is given free data points per minute, okay? And this can be found, and we'll see this as we go through the tool in more in depth. We can find that in the administrator's account. You can ingest at a slower rate than the 1 minute data point, okay? Sumo does not ingest metrics that is more than 1 week old. That's important to be aware of. The retention policy is also important. So your metrics data is stored as raw, 1 minute, or 1 hour resolutions. It's retained according to our following policies. So your raw data is going to retain for 7 days. The 1 minute resolution will be retained for 30 days, and the 1 hour resolutions will be retained for 13 months. Okay. For your historical roll-ups, those 1 minute and 1 hour, Sumo calculates the aggregates, the min, the max, the sum, and the count for your metrics per minute. Now let's talk about the metadata design. So we have a comfort level of how to get our metrics and logs into the Sumo Logic environment. We have comfort level on the collectors, whether hosted or installed, whether we want to do a distributed or a single server approach. Again, all of that you should be comfortable with. Now, to retrieve your logs and metrics, we use metadata tags. They're associated with your log messages that are being collected, okay? You're seeing 3 types of metadata tags. You'll see the one in bold is the one that we prefer, the one that we use often. That's the preferred method, okay? The underscore source category can be freely configured. For example, we can make it underscore source category equal to labs Akia or labs Apache Access or labs Apache Era or dev and so forth. So we can freely configure our source category metadata tag. What you're seeing at the bottom of the screen is what we're going to end up doing. We're going to end up going to our inside of our navigation panel in our main menu, and we're going to create collectors. What you're seeing on the screen is a screenshot of the actual screen of the collectors. You can see that there is one collector and it has 2 sources. Okay, it actually has 8 of them, but we only screen captured 2. So again, it has 8 of them. It tells us right there. Okay. Now, this source category best practices is just a recommendation of the nomenclature for your source categories. You want to begin with the least descriptive, the highest level grouping, and then you want to get more descriptive with each component to the right. For example, prod, my app, Apache Access. So that's more of an environmental approach. Maybe you want to go to a geographical approach. Northwest, my app 2, the CloudTrail dogs. Or maybe by AWS region, AWS East, SAC Azure, or business unit, sales, Salesforce logs. So that's the example of how you can start to create your source categories. Now, additionally, over to the right on this screenshot, you have the ability to define the scope of your searches, as well as partition your data and control your RBAC mechanisms as well. For logins. So essentially, if you follow our approach, you have some benefits from this. You can limit who can see what. You can create partitioning to make performance faster or better. Okay, and then you can also define the scope of your searches. All right, so in our upcoming lab, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do first is create a collector. We're then going to go and install one of our logs. That's the file that we're going to have you download. We're then going to install a metric, okay? And that will give you an example of how to do that installation. All right. So what I want to do first is I want you all to, I'll give you the credentials. I want you all to go ahead and log into our Sumo Logic environment, our training environment. You all have done this many times before. So, oh, thank you, John. So again, you're going to launch open up a browser. Again, you are logging into our training environment. So you're going to type in service.sumologic.com. I would like for each of you to think of a 3-digit number from 1 to 999. If you've been in class with me this week, you can use the same number if you want. I see some of you are already ahead of the game. You're putting your 3-digit number in the chat. That's awesome. Yep, go ahead and put your number in chat and go ahead and log in as well. And just confirm with me, with us, that you've successfully logged in.
Hey, folks, this is John. The account you're logging in with has administrative rights. It's a different account. So it's training plus admin with that 3-digit number at sumologic.com and a different password. Please make sure you log in with that account.
Thank you, Preet. Thank you, John. Again, that's a good point. John mentioned that if you take a look at the credentials, we're logging in as admin as opposed to analyst. And if you did take a class with me, I did talk about that you don't have access to creating collectors as an analyst. So again, I'm logging in, putting in my credentials. Thank you for confirming. Thank you, Letitia. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Again, the password is metrics 2022 with an exclamation point. And I probably fat fingered it. I did at extra 2. So again, this is the login credentials. Thank you, Kendo. Thank you, Raymond, letting me know you're in. Thank you, Yang. And of course, I fat fingered it. If I learn how to spell correctly. Okay, let's use another number maybe. All right. Oh, I'm in the wrong environment. So I apologize. You get in the right environment. I have multiple environments. Thank you for confirming that you're in. I'll be in there shortly. And there you go. Make sure I didn't fat finger it. Awesome. So everybody's in. Awesome. If you have any problems, please let us know. Again, if you have any problems logging in, please let us know in chat. All right, now just to kind of remind you of the environment, if you've taken the course with me already, you know, under the Home tab, under the Learn link, we give you the fundamentals, also the administration. So we're going to be dealing with the administration. Okay, so you can go ahead and click on that. I'll paste it in the chat for you in case some of you can't get to that. Again, to remind those of you that may be new to the environment and you're taking this as your first course, over to the left here is our navigation panel. Here's our main menu, the darker shaded area. You have the ability to hide and show the navigation panel by either clicking on the arrow pointing to the left or clicking on the stack of hamburgers next to the word Sumo Logic. Okay. All right. So hopefully everyone's in. Let's go ahead and get started here. So another thing, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in a Google Chrome environment, you have the ability to pin your tabs. So I can right click on that tab if you're in a Google Chrome environment and pin it. The advantage of doing that, it makes it easier to toggle between the actual lab and the CIP. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the introduction is basically allowing you to log into our training environment. So you're already in there, and to remind you that you're logged in as an administrator. Let's go ahead and click on lab number 1, install a collector. So you've seen this screenshot before. We are going to create a collector, then we're going to add 2 sources. Okay. Before we begin, again, we want to download a file. We're going to download this Apache Access Logs tutorial text file. Now, if you clicked on it to download it, it probably just opened. That's not what you want. Okay. What you probably should do is right click on it and save it. Okay. And I'll save it there. Click save. So that's the first step, because we're going to end up using this file as one of our sources. Okay. All right. Now we want to install a collector to stream the data into Sumo Logic for viewing and analysis. Our first step is to set up and install collector and the sources. It's a lightweight software package that you install on the host machine in your environment to collect your data from those machines and sources. Okay. So let's go ahead, and we're on step number 1. We're going to go to our navigation panel. We're going to click on our manage data on our main menu. The main menu is the darker shaded area. Under the manage data, you'll see some sublinks. We're going to click on collection. Okay. Now, again, when you come here, everything is expanded. All of your collectors are expanded. Okay. We can have the ability to search for it right here if we wanted to. We can see that we have one of so many pages of collectors. Okay. And let me bring my, just a little bit. I just want to bring my size down just a little bit. All right. Now, one of the things that I often do here is when I come in, I click on none, so it doesn't look so overwhelming. Okay, it's not mandatory that you do that, but I was just demonstrating how you can collapse all of the collectors. Okay, the collector names. What we want to do, you and I, we're going to go ahead and click on the add collector link. Now, if you recall, when we logged in as the analyst, we were unable to click on that. Okay. We're going to do in this first example, an install collector. So each of us, all of us together, should be clicking on the installed collector. Now, I'm running on a Mac. Depending on what you're running on at your environment, you're going to choose the different type of installation. Okay, you're probably running on a Windows 64-bit, if not a Mac yourselves. Maybe you're running on Linux. Okay, let's go ahead and click on whichever install collector you need. It, of course, is going to download it. Once it gets downloaded, I'll then go ahead and click on it. Ready, almost there. And some of you may have asked, Odell, the wizard, can we use that? Well, you can. Again, it takes you to the same thing. Okay. So Sharari, I think I pronounced your name correctly. Make sure you're logged in as an admin. Okay. If you're logged in as an analyst, you probably don't have the ability to create a collector. I'll put the credentials in again. Again, you're logging in as an admin. All right. All right, let's see if there's other questions out here. Yes, James, yep, you're clicking on add collector. Okay, all right, so hopefully everyone has done that and everyone's up to speed. Sharara, when you get in, you're just going to go to your navigation panel over to the left, click on manage data, go to collections, and you'll click on add collector. You'll choose the type of collector, okay? And then you'll be able to, again, Hotan asked how much disk space required for installation. Again, this is a lightweight Java-based item, okay? John, do you have more on that?
I'm looking right now just to see how much it takes. It doesn't take much. And again, as you mentioned, it is lightweight. It takes up less than 1% of your CPU, less than 1% of your memory. And as far as your disk space goes, let me right click here and get info. On a Mac, it takes 409 megs. So, not too much. So I don't know about a Windows machine. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, after your Sumo collector installs, you're going to go ahead and double click on it, okay? So it can get the installation started. I double clicked on mine. I'm just waiting on it to come up. It may prompt you for credentials. So hopefully you have the rights to your machines. And again, mine will come up shortly, as I'm sure yours is as well. Thank you, John. John put in the chat for us the approximate size amount of space that's needed for a collector. All right, so you can see I am prompted. I need to have administration rights on this machine, which I luckily do have. Odell, what are we doing? We are installing a collector in the training environment. Okay, so we're going through the process. We've actually clicked on the add collector. It downloaded. We then double clicked on it, logged into it, and now it's going to begin to install. And again, patience is a virtue. It will be coming up shortly, and there it is. Again, if you have any problems or questions, please put them in the chat. I am in a wizard now, so hopefully you've gotten to this point where the setup Sumo Logic collector screen is. Okay, it's a wizard mode, so we're going to click next. Once we click next, we'll go ahead and accept the agreement and then click next. Okay, it gives us a location where the collector is going to be installed. We can browse and put that in another location, but we're going to leave it as it is. So we'll click next in the wizard. Then it'll begin to install. So we'll give it a couple minutes to let it install. Hopefully yours is right on pace. Letitia, sorry to hear that you're not able to, you don't have rights for the installation. Again, you'll begin to see preparing install. It'll start installing all of those files shortly. We are going to end up creating this collector. Once we create it, then we'll install the Apache log text file as one source, and then we'll install a hosted collector as well, a metrics hosted. So that's coming up. Let us know if your installation has completed. You can let us know in chat. Again, we don't want you to go any further after the installation because there's some extra steps that we want to go through. So again, just let us know if you've already completed the installation. Mine is extracting files now. It may take a second or two for you guys. So thanks for your patience. Thank you, Young. Yeah, if you can just wait right there, that's perfect. Don't go any further. Just give us an opportunity to all come to one point. Again, if you have completed the installation, let me know. Thank you, Jackie. Just hold on tight. Again, if you are ahead of me, just hold on tight. I'll catch up with you to lead you through the next steps.
We gave Odell the slowest Mac in the world here to make sure that you guys all get ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Just hang tight. I'll be there shortly. Yeah, Larry. John gave me the slowest one. He surely did. Well, yeah, you guys are fancy. No worries, James. So since you have a collector already installed, again, no worries. All right. So eventually, ladies and gentlemen, you should see the screen that I'm on. Let me know if you're still going. If it's still going, please let us know. I don't want to leave anyone behind. All right. So we can see the collector name is set to our actual machine name. Okay. It has some defaults in there. One of the things that we can do is we can click on our advanced settings. If we wanted to, we could actually change our collector name. Okay. I just want to demonstrate this. So if I wanted to, I can change the collector name. Again, I can specify any categories or descriptions that I need. All of that information is there. I can designate a specific proxy or URL or sources if we needed to. Okay, we're just going to leave everything as it is. I wanted you to be aware of that. Again, in the wizard, I'm just going to click next. And next. Now, everyone should be at this window screen, hopefully, the screenshot where I am. We have two approaches for credentials to authenticate. We have a token or an access key. The token, you're only going to be able to use it once. Okay. The access key, you'll be able to use multiple times. So we are going to utilize an access key. So make sure you choose the radio button next to the phrase access key. We're still in a wizard mode, so let's click next. So we're going to be prompted to create and have an access ID and an access key. Okay. What I need for you to do is go back to the CIP. Okay. Go to your navigation panel. Click on your login credentials. Down in the main menu, the darker shaded area, you're clicking on your training, admin, whatever number. It has some more links underneath it. Let's click on the preferences. Odell, what are we doing? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are creating a collector and we're going to create some sources. We're right now in the process of creating a collector. So we're defining the access key, okay? So everyone should be on this screen. And if you go over to the right, you'll see the phrase add access key in blue. Go ahead and click that blue box. Let's give our access key a name. So I'll type in AK, and let's give it our initials, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll just go ahead and put, you don't have to put the date. I do this quite often, so I need to put the date. Okay, so we're just giving it a name, AK for access key underscore OG, and you would put in your initials. Next, we're going to click on the blue Create Key button. Now, if your company has a library system where they're capturing and keeping keys, you would want to capture your access key and put it in the library at this point, okay? Because once we're done, you won't see that access key anymore, okay? All right, now, let's go ahead where it says access key, pardon me, access ID. Over to the right, we can click on the copy. So that's going to copy it to memory. Then we can go back to our setup where it's prompting us for an access ID, and we can paste that. We then can go back to our access key and copy that. Go back to our installation and paste. Okay. We're in a wizard mode. We can click next. The tool is going to attempt to make a connection to Sumo Logic. And again, as John mentioned, I have the slower of the machines here in the training environment. So yours may be moving a lot quicker than mine. Again, I appreciate your patience. This process is attempting to connect to the Sumo Logic environment using those credentials that we just created for the access key. Righty. Looks like it's getting faster, so hopefully it'll connect shortly. Let us know if you're having any issues like myself in the chat window. Again, let us know if you have any issues during the installation here. It may time out and you may have to reissue it again. You don't have to copy and paste any of the credentials over again. It'll automatically be in the actual, the access key, and the access name will be there automatically. And this normally takes less than a minute or two. So again, I apologize. So John, what do you think here?
just wait it out. Hopefully it'll be finished up here in a minute. But I think your installation ran a little faster than it did previously.
Oh, you're right about that. I was
I'm
trying to
hoping we
knock
don't
on
have time out here. I was just talking to Josh about your, collector issues and stuff. So hang on, let's see what goes on here. Okay.
All right, so click OK there. Take longer than normal.
And
Click next. Try it again. It might be like yours and it runs better on the second try. Hopefully you all have gotten past this part. If anyone has not, please let us know if you're having the same problem that I am. I probably think you don't.
yeah, y'all should see a finish button, and then you can finish up the, click the button and close the collector installation. So
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Rodrigo.
another
All right,
option.
awesome. There you go. I can put in here. I put that in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm so excited because I often have troubles with this. So again, has everyone installed theirs? Let us know if you have not. I don't want to go any further if you haven't. You should be seeing the finish button. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Jonathan.
We also realize some of you can't install, so that's that's understandable. So you can watch and follow along.
Rodrigo, I think you hit a great point there. Murphy's Law in Zoom. I agree. I think this only happens in the Zoom environment. Thank you, Hoyan. Thank you, Kendall. Okay, so I think the majority of you are in. If you have any issues, please let us know in the chat environment. We're going to go ahead and click on finish. What's wrong, Kendall? What's that face mean? I don't know what that face means. All right, we can close out of the, oh, no worries. We can close out of the access ID and key. So if you can click done on that, you should now see your access key, the ID, and when it was created and that it's active. You should see that now.
Do me a favor, click on edit on that. Just show that the access key cannot be accessed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So this is what I was alluding to earlier. If your company keeps track in a library of access keys, you needed to capture that on the create window. As John just alluded to before, when I click on the edit of this access key that we created, I don't see the actual item. Okay. All right, very good. All right, let's go back to our installation steps. So we've done all of number 4. We installed our collector. We generated an access key. Good work, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you've completed lab number 1. We've downloaded a static Apache Access log file to our local machines, and we installed a collector on our local machines. Okay, lab 2 here, we're going to learn how to add sources for those collectors. Let's click on the bottom right corner, the lab 2 add sources. Now, we need to move our Apache text file that we downloaded. We need to move that on your Macs. You need to move it to your TMP directory. On your Windows, you need to move it to your temp directory. So we want to move that file. I'll bring up my Finder. Oops, sorry, let me close out of that. All right. And here I want to go to my downloads. And here's my collector. I can go up. Let me magnify this a little bit more for you. Okay, I can go down. I can copy this file. I can copy this file. Okay, I have the temp directory already here, but I want to demonstrate to you if you're doing this for the first time. I can go to a specific folder, go to my TMP is where I want to go, hit enter, and then I can paste. Okay.
Odell,
Yes, sir.
you just installed the software for the collector there, not the text file.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Thank you.
Okay.
So here's the
And
text
you may
file.
want to show the directions just so people are aware where we are in the directions.
Okay. Yeah. So I am copying this Apache text here, and I'm putting it in my TMP directory by pasting it. And as John mentioned in the lab steps, which I showed you before, we'll show you again. Here's what we're doing. Okay. We're going to our temp folder, and this is, of course, on a Mac. Okay. And we're placing that, copying and pasting that file, that text file into our TMP. Okay. Let us know if you have any issues with that. James, you want to use it? John, would that be the temp? Either one works? Okay, good.
Yeah, either one works. Just so you guys know, Macs are real security tight. The Odell's account doesn't necessarily have the same rights and access that root does on a Mac. And so root is the account that's being used here by the collector, or in your case, the administrator account on your Windows machine. So as long as the administrator can access that file, we're fine. But Macs are really weird about how they segment. Root doesn't automatically have access to everything that a user has. And so that's a security thing with Mac, and that's what makes this a bit more complicated for Macs.
So John, there's another instance where Regina doesn't have access to her Mac TMP.
Gotcha. So Regina, if you're following the directions and you go into Finder and you go to folder and you type in /TMP, it doesn't take you there, or it says you don't have access. And again, Regina, we can not worry about exercise 2. We'll do exercise 3 and lab 3, and we'll get you, taken care of here. But we can talk about this offline.
Okay. All right. So again, what we had just done was that text file that we downloaded initially at the very beginning of our lab steps. We're moving it to a TMP or temp directory. Okay. And again, the steps are in your lab there. Next, we're going to create an Apache log source. Okay. So we have the collector, and in your labs, we're now where it says find the collector by name. So find yours, the one you created, and then we're going to add a source. Okay. So I'm going back to the CIP. I'm going to my manage data in my main menu and going to my collections. And again, we can find our collector. My collector is my machine name. So I'm just going to type in OG and see if it finds it for me. I think it's old Gordon, I think. All right, so I found my collector. Let's see here. I'll remove this one. All right, now that I have my collector here, there are no sources underneath it. So when I click on this arrow, there's nothing underneath it, okay? So everyone, make sure you find your collector name. You can search for it. Again, it's probably your host name of your machine. Once you find your collector, go all the way over to the right. You'll see the word add, okay? Again, in our steps here, you're looking for your collector and you're gonna click on add. Hotang, that's you download the tutorial, excuse me, on the first lab step, lab number 1. So if you go click on the link down at the bottom, go back to lab number 1, you'll see this file here, Apache tutorial text. That's the one that you want to download. Okay. All right, I digressed. Hopefully you can get up to speed there. Let's get back to lab 2 here. Okay. So again, this is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. We found our collector, our source. Okay, we're now going to click on add source, and it's going to be a local file. So if you're following me, I'm back at the CIP, click on add. It gives me a set of choices, add source or script. I want to add a source. It gives me several choices. I want to do host metrics, scripts, docs, remote files. We're just going to do a local file. Okay. And again, we're going to name it. We're going to put the credentials that they prompt us to put in. We'll put in Apache logs as the name. We'll also specify a source category. So I'll just put Apache logs, and you can put your initials afterwards if you like. I'm going to do this as well. And we're going to add a source category for our Apache logs text file. We're going to utilize the prod Apache access. So we're going to type in there prod Apache access. You're in your source category. That's where you're placing that. All right, we're also going to add a file path. You can't find your collector, Victor. Okay. 1 second. So do you know the name of your machine? Maybe that's what it did. We want to take what's in our actual steps here and copy that. Remember, if you are copying the file path, it has a period at the end of the sentence. We don't want that, okay? We don't want the period. So you're just going to copy that /tmp Apache access logs tutorial.txt, and then we're going to put that in the file path, so the actual location of it. All right, so let's go back to our environment. Yes, sir.
Let me if ever bring up your Finder for a second.
Okay.
I think when you downloaded it, appended a 1 to your file name. So if you go into your temp directory and check the file name that's there.
So
put a 5 there. Sorry, parentheses 5.
Okay, let's rename it.
Oh, yeah, rename it. There you go. Clean it up.
And rename it and take that off of there. That's a good point. Thank you, John.
No problem.
All right, very good. So again, ladies and gentlemen, all we're doing here, we're adding a collector, we're adding the name, we're adding the file path, and the source category. Okay, so again, going back to our steps here, those are the 3 things that we added. Okay. All right, at the bottom of the screen, you can go ahead and click Save. Now you'll notice that my collector is healthy. It's an install. Remember, there's 2 types. It has 1 source underneath it. There hasn't been any ingestion. There hasn't been any activity over the last hour. If we were to expand our collector name, we should then see our Apache log, the actual source that we created, and the actual source category. Over to the right of the source category, we have the ability to open this in a log search to see if there's anything being done. Okay. And I want to make sure everyone's up to that point. So make sure that you're all up to this point. Let us know if you have any issues. Okay, I'm going to go back to the CIP. Again, I expanded my collector name, went to my source. Over to the right of the source category, I see an icon that pops up. That's my open and log search. It opens up a new tab. We can change the time period from the last 15 minutes to the last 24 hours and run our actual collector. And let's see here.
It takes a few minutes, so I want to come back and look at this later after lab 3.
Okay. So if you're not getting any data like I am, we'll wait and give it an opportunity to start ingesting. Be aware that is a way of testing your environment, okay? All right, let's go back to our lab steps. Nice job. You now set up a source on your local machine so that data in the Apache access file that we downloaded to our machine is now available. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a good time for us to take our break. So I'll go ahead and put up the timer and let's go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. And I'll see you in 5. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you got an opportunity to get away from the laptop, the computers, breathe, stretch, exhale. Okay. We had just completed lab number 2, adding a source. We tested our source. Now let's go ahead and go on to lab number 3. We're going to collect and visualize host metrics. Again, a reminder, we learned how to install a collector and add a log source. Shifting gears now, let us set up a host metric source. We're going to visualize some data collect from that source and install the host metrics app as well. All right, so again, we're going to go back and find our collector. Again, in the lab steps, we're going to add a source. And this time we're going to click on hosted metrics. So let's go back to the CIP. We can go to our collectors tab. Hopefully you've identified your collector. If you haven't, you can search for it. Once you find your collector name, you can go all the way over to the right again and choose the add. Again, we're going to choose add a source. And this time we'll choose a host metric. So that's on the platform sources, the last one to the right. All right, let's go ahead and populate the information. We want to give it a name. We want it to be called Apache Host Metrics, and we want to give it a source category, prod host metric. You don't have to worry about the source host, the IP. So again, all we want is the Apache Host Metrics as the name and the source category. So going back to the CIP, go ahead and put Apache host name, and I'll put my initials to differentiate. And it's only 12, 11 everywhere else. Huh? All right, and then again, we want to put in our source category, prod host metrics. Okay. So again, all we did was put in the Apache host metrics as a name and the prod host metrics as the source category. Okay, now let's go over a few other things here. We can determine and define which metrics we're capturing. So right now, all of my CPU metrics are being captured. Okay, all of my memory is being captured. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the check on the rest of these so I can get a lot of data. So I want all of my TCP, all of my network. It's not mandatory that you do this, but again, I'm doing this to illustrate and demonstrate that you can designate which metrics you're capturing. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and click save on that. Again, we come back to our collections tab. We have a newly defined collector called Apache Host Metrics. We can go over to the right of the source category name and click on the icon, which is going to launch our metrics tab. And eventually we'll see some activity. Okay. All right, so we were able to do that. We clicked on that icon, the blue icon, and we were able to notice metrics query being displayed as a host metric. So it's working. So congratulations. In this lab, you've created a metric source to send your host metric information into Sumo Logic environment. We can now start ingesting our host metrics. So again, we're on the portion of our lab where it reads install the host metric app. Okay, that's where we are now. Now, this is what I alluded to earlier in my talking about the slides. We have apps that are good starting points for you. Okay, we're going to install the host metric app for some out-of-the-box dashboards. Okay, so going back to our CIP. Make sure your navigation panel is visible. Let's go down to the main menu and let's click on the app catalog link in our main menu. Be aware it gives you a list of all the app catalogs, but you have the ability to filter down to a specific category. You can also search. So we're going to go ahead and type in, we're searching for our host. Case insensitive. We get two choices where the word host appears. We of course want just our host metric. That's the icon we're going to click on. All right, now we can go ahead down to the bottom here. We can see here it tells us, hey, the host metrics allows you to monitor the performance and the resource utilization of your hosts and processes that your mission critical applications are depending on. Okay, so again, you get predefined dashboards here. Okay, let's go ahead and at the bottom we'll click on, go ahead and add that. So we're going to use add. I don't know why it's not at the bottom. John, you said that before. What did I do here? Let's see here for a second. Let's go back.
Go ahead and add. You should be able to. It doesn't say add to library anymore. It now says add integration. So go ahead and click on that. Let's see what we get. They
Okay,
changed. Yeah.
They changed this on us.
Yeah, they changed this interface. Click next. The upper right hand corner. There you go.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you're following the same process that John is walking us through. Again, you click next in the wizard, okay? And we are right here in the process. So in our lab guide, this is where we actually are, Okay, we're going to set our source category to equal prod host metrics. We're going to make sure we give it a name, host metrics. Okay. So again, we can click here and type in prod host. Okay. Make sure I didn't fat finger that. It should be prod host metrics. Again, that's what your source category is going to be, prod host metrics. All right, and we'll click next.
Oh, Odell.
Yes, sir.
Go back and change that folder name from host metrics to host metrics with your initials, just to keep it straight.
Okay. So we're going to add our initials to this folder, ladies and gentlemen. You can always click back in the wizard. Okay. And let me go ahead and might as well do that. Okay. So we're specifying for the folder name our actual initials, and we're clicking next. All right, success. We can now, if you recall from our questions from our prior classes, where can we find anything that we save or download? In our personal folder. So in your navigation panel under your personal folder, you can see your newly created folder called host metrics, and you can see the actual dashboard. So I'm going to click on the overview. And this would be perfect for us if we're starting to kind of look at our host metrics. We can see our overall CPU, our system memory. We can see our used bytes per host, our network rate per host, as well as our out rate. So again, we have dashboards here that are good starting points for you to monitor your hosting. All right. You've now visualized host metrics data and have the host metrics app dashboard. There's much more that we can do here. Okay, let's get back to the slides. All right, let's talk about some optimization tools now. Okay, so we just completed the labs where we added in the host metrics collector as well as a Apache apps collector. And excuse me, sources. We added 2 sources and a collector. Now we're going to talk about some optimization. Okay, there's 2 paths to the optimization. There's a field base and an index base. And again, these paths are to help improve performance for you. Okay. With a field-based approach, we're going to be able to use the field browser where we allows you to zero in on just the fields of interest. Okay. Again, you guys are aware of the field browser. If you're not, let me quickly show you where that is. Again, your field browser is once you go into an actual search. I'll go into a log search. I'm going to close it. You're not doing this. You're just watching right now. So when I go into a log search and I type in, choose my source category, and I want to go to my labs, Apache, whoops, fat fingered it. And I click on Era, let's say, for example, and I run this. When I run this, I'll see over to the left my messages, and this area is referred to as my field browser. Okay, one of the things you want to be aware of a field browser is these fields that are listed were part of a FER, a field extraction rule. We're going to talk about that coming up. Okay. Again, so that was the field browser. It allows us to pick on a specific field and focus on that. The field extraction rule, that's how those fields became visible. And we're going to look at field extraction rules coming up. On the other hand, you have the index base where we want to partition maybe small groups or small chunks of data. okay? Unstructured data into an index environment, okay? Or a scheduled view. The scheduled views are going to speed up your search for small or historical subsets of your data by functioning as a pre-aggregated index, okay? That scheduled view is going to reduce your aggregated data down to the bare minimum, okay? All right, so the field browser. Again, I just demonstrated that to you, but on the slide, it kind of gives you more information. Of course, under there, once you run your query, you're going to see your messages tab. You have the ability to save your items. You'll see all of the fields that are going to be displayed. They have a check mark by it, a check mark by them. They're going to be visible in the results. Okay. Then you'll get a list of hidden fields that were actually happened during the field extraction rule. They were actually parsed out and here for your display capabilities. Okay. You can click on these as well. All right, let's take a look at some field extraction rules. I'm going to quickly go over into my CIP and go into the navigation panel. And what I'll do first is I'm just going to log off because I have more credentials as myself. So you don't need to do this. I really just want to demonstrate this for you. So I'm logging in as myself just so I can give you full visualization of what's going on. And we're talking about field extraction rules. So if I go to my manage data, go to my logs, I'll see that I have field extraction rules. There's a tab for field extraction rules right here. I apologize for the background noise there. So I'm going to click on the field extraction rule tab. And I'm just going to look at one of our field extraction rules just to kind of demonstrate how it's actually created. Okay. And let me find the one that I want here. All right, I'll use this one. Okay. So here is the definition of a field extraction rule. Okay. It is enabled. When does it get applied? It gets applied at ingestion time. So being ingested into Sumo Logic. What is it going to be affect? What's the scope? Whenever we use, in this instance, AWS demo dummy, whenever we use this path, okay? There's a parse expression that's parsing out these fields, okay? So when I'm actually in or utilizing this source category, I'll see these fields. So let me just kind of quickly show you this. And maybe there's no data there. I'll need to bump up the time a little bit. This example should have shown me my results, but again, this one's not. But I'll give you one that's even better. Again, you'll understand it when I go ahead and type in here. All right, so when I run this query, again, I couldn't find the actual FER that was created, but essentially there's an FER created for source category, Labs Apache area, and it is actually parsing out these fields.
Go to Labs Apache Access, please. Apache Air does not have a field extraction.
All right, so again, you'll get the same approach here. Again, I'm going against the Lab Apache Access, and my goal here is I want to use these fields, and these fields were actually extracted during ingestion time for this source. It has a parse statement that's parsing out these fields. in my field browser. So I could do things like this. If I wanted to click on the source category, I could find out more information, or I could add it to the actual query by clicking on the checkbox. Just a few things about your field extraction rules, the better performance. One of the things it also will do for you is it'll standardize the field names. So during ingestion, when we create that parse, we can name those fields. And what that does for us is whenever users run that particular source category, they're going to see a field name. Now let's look at the reverse of that. Let's say that there wasn't any field extraction rules. So I would have to parse out those fields. I'd use a parse statement, maybe a parse anchor or parse regex. Now here's the thing. Once I parse it out, I can give it any name I want. Well, that doesn't coincide with the rest of the company. I'm not using any naming conventions or anything. So again, to really alleviate that, you can standardize your field name. So during that ingestion, you can put in some names and users won't have to parse out and create their own names. Another benefit is going to simplify your searches. Okay, some of the best practices here is to test your parsing and other operations thoroughly. A good example is to use the no drop or the is empty. The no drop is going to bring back all the records, even if it doesn't meet the parse expression. Okay. Also, there's some limitations. There's 50 rules or 200 fields. If you need to increase that, you can always put in a ticket to the help desk, give us a shout out. Not all operators are supported on JSON, okay? JSON Auto. So not all operators will have their items parsed out for the JSON Auto. Next, what are partitions? These are custom views. They're indexed. They improve performance over small numbers of messages, okay? They're faster for your searching. They also, again, I apologize for that. Must be something major going on. They also allow for RBAC control, so we can designate what users or rows can be, have the ability to access those partitions. You have the ability to create additional partitions so your searches don't scan the entire data set. And again, partitions can also be viewed right where I was in my logs. The next object here is a partition. And let's look at an example here. So here I built, there's a partition created. It tells you the data tier. Let me create a new one so you can see some of the variables there. So I'll add a new partition here. And I'm not able to do that, I guess because of my rights. So I'll open up one, no worries. So here is a defined partition. It's the data tier is continuous. Again, we have 3 different levels of data tiers. The actual routing expression is defined, as well as the retention period. Scheduled views. I briefly mentioned scheduled views earlier. Again, scheduled views speed up your searches as well. Again, they allow you to process small or historical subsets of data. They reduce the aggregation data down to the bare minimum. Some of the best practices are pre-aggregate your data, okay? Find the needle in the haystack. And don't insert any comments as it may interrupt the parsing of your pipes, okay? And again, you remember the double slash is how you comment items out, okay? There are some limitations with your scheduled views. We recommend a selectivity of 1 to 10,000 log messages. You want to view is updated by the service once a minute. So it's going to be updated by once a minute. You can also allow for backfilling. You can search your views by using the metadata tag _view. So that's how you use a search for your actual views. You use the metadata tag _view. This doesn't count against your ingest volume, these scheduled views. They do not. All right, let's get back here. All right, now some examples of schedule views. You can create a schedule view for your web access trends to allow you to isolate some logs related to your site. You can use an app usage. Maybe you want to schedule a view to help you track the usage of your some of your applications, or maybe threat analysis or user behavior. So those are some some examples of applying your schedule views. Optimization tools, again, you want to extract your fields from your logs and make them available to all users. That's a field-based approach where we're using our field browser and the field extraction rules. The other approach is index-based, where you can utilize RBAC to deny or grant access to the data to specific users, groups, or roles. Again, there's two approaches, indexes, using the partitioning or the scheduled views. All right, overview of our data management. Again, I'll actually go into the actual tool to kind of walk you through these. Okay, so I'm going to go into the account overview. Going back to the CIP here, I'm logged in as myself. Going to administration here, I'm in my main menu here. Okay, I went into administration and I'm clicking on account. Okay. And let's see here. Let's make sure I'm in not in the training area here. So let me make sure. I should see more than this here, ladies and gentlemen. Yep. So I'm not seeing everything here. Let me log out here. And again, I'll log back in, and I'm going to log into our environment and try that again. So just bear with me. All right, you fat fingered that, huh? All right, there you go. All right, so what I was attempting to demonstrate, which it doesn't allow me to do here, I don't see it, okay? I should see the account ability to look at my account overview, as well as my data management and the ability to upgrade, okay? So when you first log in as the administrator, you click on the administration and you'll see the account overview screen, okay? If you want to look at your current billing period or how much data you've ingested, you can actually look at that page as well. Again, also on that link there, you'll see data management. The key thing about the data management tab, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to download another app, okay? This checkbox needs to be checked if we want to utilize that data volume index app. So when we get ready to download that data volume app, this black box is already checked for us, so we should be fine. Again, it's a good idea to take advantage of the out-of-the-box dashboards and save searches that are available. Again, we went to the app catalog and we actually downloaded our host metrics. Again, if you were in it with us in class earlier this week, we went there to download the Apache as well, okay? When an app is installed, there's preset searches and dashboards that are customized with your sources. So as I was mentioning, that data volume app that we're going to download shortly, again, this checkbox is automatically checked, but in case your administrator unchecked it, in order for you to actually download it and work correctly, that box needs to be checked. The data volume, again, that you can view your account's data usage by collector, by source name, and by host. We're also going to download the audit app, which will allow us to enable indexing, analyze our audit events to provide insight. You can take a look at your ingest budgets and monitor your control. Again, you can look at how your collectors are monitoring. Some of the use cases for this, you might want to find out or designate teams are using more of the actual ingest than other teams. So again, you can find out, set up limitations for different teams based on, again, their usage or something along those lines. So you can control the ingest budgets for your groups or teams in your company. Right. You can also look at the health of your events. You now have the ability to see if your collectors or sources have a red status indicated. You can then go to your managed data alert and look at the health of your events. The health of the events are created when an issue is detected with your collector. The health events table allows you to easily view and investigate some problems getting your data into Sumo. That table, you can search, you can filter, you can sort. Again, you have all capabilities, a lot of capabilities with that item, okay? And let's see, let me go back over here. So here in my, again, we saw in the actual instructions that it's under our manage data alerts, okay? I'm actually under managed data, there's no alert, they've changed it, it's now monitoring. When you click on manage data monitoring, you'll then see the health events. And you see I have quite a few of them that I could click on and find out and resolve that. Go to more actions and look at the event history and view the object. So again, I have that capability under the managed data monitoring. All right, so global security settings. Okay, let's get in and take a look at that. So again, we have the ability to set the policies for everyone, the password policy. We can set up the whitelist, the access keys, and the policies in the SAML. Let me get in here and see if they'll allow me to do that. All right, so I don't let me do that here. So again, I'm gonna just use the slides here. Again, so you have the ability to set your password policies. Okay, you can set up when it expires. How does a user get locked out? You can also set up two-step verification if need be. You also have the ability to set up service whitelist settings. And essentially with those service whitelist settings, you can use the whitelist to enable logins from certain IP address ranges. You can also enable dashboards and URLs to be shared worldwide without logging in. Or you can control who sees it, okay? For example, if you're going to share a certain dashboard with a partner, this is where you could securely share it with only their IP address. Okay, so again, this is your service whitelist. Your access keys and installation, we've actually installed an access key, and we found our access key by going to our login credentials and going down to preferences. And in this environment, I don't have any. And I was able to add an access key, okay? But from an administrator's perspective, again, we don't have that capability here. Let me get it over in there. Oh, so here it is. Yep, we don't have it. Okay, so anyhow, I'll go back to the slides here. Again, with those access keys, you can see all of the access keys And those access keys are for authentication. You can create an access key or an installation token when you install, just as we did before. This will allow us, allow the jobs to remain running if you log out, okay? The policies tab, again, we're gonna download 2 apps, and one of those apps is for our auditing. We need to make sure that these check boxes, and they are by default. Now, Sumo Logic auditing allows us to monitor user access, okay? We can support account access, which allows Sumo to access our account. That's these here, the support. So this one here, this checkbox here is when you call up Sumo Logic and you say, hey, I need help. This checkbox allows them to get into your environment. With the shared dashboards outside of the organization can be enabled, or do not allow sharing dashboards outside of your organization. So that's this checkbox there for you. Your data access levels checkbox. Again, this is, if it's enabled, it ensures that the viewer has permissions and are used, and not the permissions that are shared by the dashboard. And then finally, the per user concurrent session limit. This allows you to specify the number of concurrent sessions that a user can have. On to the SAML, the single sign-on. This is where you can set it up. As an administrator, you have the ability to configure security assertion markup language, your SAML. If your organization uses SAML provider, we strongly encourage you to integrate it with Sumo Logic. It is a best practice to include the user's full name and last name. So full first name and last name, so that they can access the online certification test. So again, as an administrator, you want to make sure the users are putting in their full name, because we want their actual certification to read their full name. We don't want it to read O. Gordon or Odell G. So again, put in their full names. All right, some user role management. Again, we can add our users. We can also specify where or what groups or roles that they have access to. Okay, we can put in their email addresses as well. Again, there's 2 default roles. We've used both of them if you've taken our courses. We've used the analyst and the admin today. Again, that administrator allows you to manage the users and the roles and view and manage your collectors. The analyst allows you to full data access, but you don't have any ability to create collectors or collector management. Here are some capabilities in our users and roles. So we can designate the data management. We can enable data management volume tracking. We can also designate the monitors as well, what we want to monitor within our environment. Again, with our roles, we have the ability to designate and add those roles and designate down to the actual filter level. So here we're editing the Apache role. It's only affecting Apache. It only has access to Apache and the actual filter that's being applied here. Content sharing. And I should be able to do this one here. Again, when you go into, as the administrator, go in here, and I go to my library, and let me close out some of these tabs here. Okay, and when I go to my library tab here, that's why I want to go to my library tab. Again, I can see all of my items that are.
Odell, are you in the training environment or are you in the demo environment?
Oh, looks like I'm in the demo. I need to be in the training. Thank you, sir.
No problem. That's why you're having problems.
I have multiple sessions, ladies and gentlemen. I have a training and a demo environment. And John was nice enough to point that out to me. Thank you, sir. All right, so again, I was clicking on the library. Right now, I see I am in as myself, but I have the ability to configure over to a content administrator. The advantage of being the content administrator is I have access to all my users' folders. So I could actually designate or move or assign someone's folder to someone else. So let's say, for example, someone left the group or the team, but they have a bunch of items out there. So I can come in as the content administrator and designate who should this be assigned to, this folder. Make sure once you change your content administrator to content administrator, you change it back to yourselves. Now, I wanted to quickly show you that administrator and those roles. Again, I was in the wrong environment. So now I can see my users and roles here. So if I click here, I can see all the users and I can see all of the roles. I can always add a role as an administrator as well by clicking on it, assigning it. I can also designate the capabilities of that role. Okay. On the security side, again, I'm under administration, security. Again, we talked about the password policies that you can set. We talked about the allow list. Again, if we wanted to allow certain IP addresses, we have that capability as well. We talked about the access key, seeing all of them. Remember when I went into my environment and went into the preferences, I didn't create any as logged in as myself. But if you were in as a trainer, you would see that. Okay. All right. Let's go back over here to the slides here. All right, so now we reach and get to labs number 4 through 6. So going back to my lab steps. In your lab environment, we had just completed lab number 3. If you click in the bottom right corner, we're going to go to lab number 4. We're going to install the audit app. Remember when I talked about it earlier, before we can install, we have to make sure that the Sumo auditing, the administrator has allowed that checkbox. Okay. So again, going back to the CIP here. And let's go back over to our lab steps. Okay. We are going to install the audit app. I can only guess they know that I'm training, so they figured they bring all of the sirens past me. That's the only thing I could think of today. Anyhow, let's go to our app catalog, and we're going to go ahead and search for our audit app. So I'm going to, in my main menu, going to my app catalog. Let me close some of this so you can see it a little bit easier. So I'm going to my app catalog, then I'll type in audit. All right, and again, you should see and you should choose the one that only has the word audit, okay? We'll go ahead and add it to the integration. We're in a wizard mode, so we'll click next. There's no configuration steps, so we can click next. And we can click exit. Okay, again, where would I find that object? I would go to my personal folder. And again, here's my audit. Okay, it has predefined dashboards as well as search log searches. Okay. All right, so we added that. Okay. We looked in our library, we saw it. Let's look at the overview of our library. So let's go back here and we can go into our audit and we want to look at our library content overview dashboard. So I can see in this dashboard, I can see where my users are logging in from. Okay. I can see any installation of these updates or deletes that have happened. So broken down by my actions. I can see my actions over time, as well as the top 10 active users and so forth. So there's several panels on this dashboard that might be very helpful. Okay. Now, congratulations. You've installed the audit app to see your results from your source. Now we want to share that audit app. Okay. Again, going back to our dashboard here, I'm going to go back to my navigation panel, going to the folder of my audit. I can click on the 3 dots and share. You may have seen this in prior classes, but essentially if you click under the share with users, specific users and roles, click in that blank area, it'll give you a list of users and roles. We're going to go ahead and choose the entire organization. Okay. And share. All right. Now others in our organization will see the audit app when they select, or excuse me, in the library. Okay, they'll see the audit app. Now let's install the data volume app. Okay, again, this is another instance where we have to make sure that data volume setting is already checked, and we know that it is. Okay, let's go ahead and search for our data app. So again, we'll go back to our app catalog. This time we'll type in the word data. And we will, of course, want our data volume. Again, it filters down to anything with data. We want to use our data volume. Again, it gives you a high-level overview. It allows you to see a summary and detailed views of your account's data usage volume by data type, by tier, category, collector, or search name. Okay, we're in a wizard mode, so we're going to go ahead and click Add to Category. Click Next. Again, it tells us it's successful. We can click Exit. We again will find that in our personal folder, and we should see our data volume folder with a list of dashboards here. Okay, so we can look at the data volume overview dashboard. Here we can see the actual items that are set here. These are our different levels that I was mentioning before. Again, we have continuous, frequent, and infrequent based on ingestion. Okay, it tells you about our log views, our metric views, and then we can see, again, we're looking at our ingestion by source category. We're looking at our usage percentage of source categories. So again, we have some dashboard panels on here that'll give us the top 5 source categories, etc. So here's where we can kind of monitor and manage our data ingestion and usage. So those are 2 good apps that we should, again, be utilizing in our production environments. All right. We can share this data volume app as well, similarly to what we did with the audit app. So again, back here in my navigation panel, I'm clicking on the 3 dots to the right of the data volume folder, sharing, okay? And then I can choose an actual user group or role, and click share. Thank you, James. That's a good point. James mentions that the data volume is useful for log spikes as well. Good point. All right, so we shared it. All right, good job. Awesome. Let's click on the next lab, lab number 5. And again, there really isn't a lab number 5. This would allow you, especially if you were doing self-service, this would allow you to go and complete labs 2 through 6 from the fundamentals. But most of us have already completed those labs. So again, we can go ahead on to lab number 6, alerting when data ingestion reaches 50%. So let's go ahead and click on that. All right, so this alert is when our data ingestion reaches a threshold, a 50% threshold. We're going to create an alert that will notify us when our data usage has reached that threshold. Okay. Let's go ahead and copy the entire query, log query under number 3. Okay. And let's copy that. And we're going to schedule this. Ideally, you can schedule this query to run every 4 hours with a time range of today. Okay. But again, we're going to go ahead and copy that and go back to our CIP. And let's go ahead and create a new log search. And let's paste that in there. And let's change our time period. Let's say we're going to do it for 7 days. Okay, and we run that. So let's kind of talk about what this is doing. First of all, realize that it's going after an actual index. So we're using a metadata tag, index equal Sumo Logic volume. And we're telling it where the source category equals the volume. We're parsing out, we're creating a new field called collector and parsing out some items. We're then going to, actually looks like we're going to put that in bytes. We're then summing, we're actually multiplying our bytes times 1024 3 times to get our gigabytes. We're then summing our gigabytes and creating a new column called collector. We're totaling. Again, we're replacing the plan limit size. We're then converting that back to gigabytes there. We're dividing our total plan size, our today's volume by our plan size. And then we're adding a where we're replacing the desired threshold. Okay. Then we could go ahead and set up an alert off of this if we wanted once it completes. And again, you guys are familiar with how to create alerts. If not, again, you would save this and then go ahead and schedule this, change the frequency. Maybe you want to run it every 15 minutes. And then you also have the ability to set up how you want to be alerted via email. Maybe you want to create a webhook to get to Slack, or maybe you're using ServiceNow connection, what have you. Okay. All right. Let's make sure we got through all of that. Yes, sir. All right. So wrapping up. Any questions? I see John answered quite a few of those questions that you had in chat. So thank you, John, for that. Appreciate it, sir. All right, so if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and give you the ability to go ahead and take the exam. Notice there's 20 questions as opposed to all of our other exams had 30 questions. You have 60 minutes. You need 75 to pass. It's open slides, labs, and documentation. Okay. Again, let me demonstrate how you're going to take the exam. Right now, you're logged in into our training environment as a trainer, as a training admin. You want to first log out. So you click on in the navigation panel, click on your name, and then click on sign out. So you want to log out of our training environment. And now you want to log into your company's Sumo Logic environment. Once you log in, again, you're going to go to the Home tab, click on the certification link, and click on the Get Certified. Once you click on that Get Certified, I want to give you two things here first. Okay, if you want the labs and the slides and the video, you come to Recorded Live Training. Okay, but to take the test, you click on Get Certified. We have just completed the administration course, so you're going to take the admin exam. And again, remember that you want to go through all of the questions. Okay. Which of the following options is not a best practice when creating field extractions? Whenever possible, create multiple specific rules. Test the scope. Extract all fields as possible. If the field name needs to match a distinct log pattern, create a multiple parse no drop statement in our first. So I'll take this first one. So again, my goal here, ladies and gentlemen, is to indicate to you is once you create and you answer all the questions, you click submit all answers. I got that one wrong. So again, what you're going to do is identify what you got wrong. You're going to click the submit or close course and then try it again. All right. Also be aware that you can, once you've actually passed the certification, you can go up to the little icon in the top right corner, click on my profile, and you can also display your status as well as your certificate in LinkedIn. Okay. All right. All right. So again, I'll put in the chat the actual Uber Eats voucher. I want to thank you all if there aren't any questions. Oh, thank you, Josh, for answering that question for me. Josh is in here. I appreciate that. I want to thank you all for allowing us to present to you on behalf of John, Meredith, and myself. I want to thank you, and we look forward to you to coming to some upcoming training courses. Good luck. I'll be here for another hour to assist you, and have a good rest of your day.